Good morning, everybody. Hi. I'm very excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today because it's something I get asked about all the time. No, not my dog, who's so cute. I mean, if he could sing, he'd be an incredible singer because he just sits on the couch while I teach all day long. Wouldn't that be funny? All right, I digress. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is annihilating your break. How many of you suffer with massive inconsistency when it comes to changing registers? And in case you're a little unclear, if you haven't heard me talk about that idea of changing registers before, what I'm talking about when we talk about the different registers of your voice, we're talking about chest voice and head voice, right? So chest voice is your lower register, speech level register. I'm talking in chest voice right now. Most of you probably know this. Head voice is a different resonating space. Both men and women have head voice. So if I'm up here, I'm talking in my head voice. So how do I know whether I'm in head voice or chest voice? Most of you intuitively can feel it, but here's how you know whether you're in head voice or chest voice. If you put your hand right here under your collarbones and you give a nice feeling, like what I tell my singers is like you're getting into a hot tub and it feels really good, and you say, ah, and you can feel all the vibration right here in your chest. So do that. Put your hand right there and say, ah, and you feel all that buzzing, because in chest voice, the sound is bouncing around inside your chest cavity, below your larynx. Now, head voice, keep your hand here and do like woohoo, or say 1, 2, 3. If you're talking in your head voice, and do you feel anything under your hand? Just notice it. You don't, because the sound is not resonating in your chest anymore. It is resonating in the resonators that are up here, which is your sinuses, between your brain and your skull, and in the buccal cavity. All of this is above your larynx. Okay, so just so that we're all on the same page about what we're talking about here, head resonance is when that's going on and the sound is bouncing around up there, and chest resonance is when the sound is bouncing around down here. And when you hear people talk about mix, it's when you got a little bit of both going on. And that's what everybody wants, right? If you're having a really hard time with your break, it's because you don't have any mixed capacity in between chest register, which you can feel, if you feel that buzzing, and head register, woohoo, where you don't feel anything under here and you feel it all up here. So I am live today because I want to talk about one of those things that I get asked all the time when it comes to registers, and that's how to annihilate that break so that you can switch up and down from chest to head very smoothly, very consistently, very reliably, without it feeling like a massive chasm and such a hugely different sound between chest and head. So I'm really curious, first of all, if you're watching, if changing registers from head to chest or from chest to head, if that gives you anxiety, like hit me in the chat. And by the way, even if you're watching the replay and you're not watching live, hit me in the chat, because I have, some responses. So I want to know, does changing registers make you anxious? Is it something that as the pitch gets higher and you're starting to approach head voice from chest voice, you feel your head go, uh-oh, and you feel your body go, uh-oh? That's a dead giveaway that you are not going to create what you want. Why? Because you're already in that uh-oh place. So hit me in the chat if you experience these things. Do you crack when you change registers? Either you're descending from head down to chest, or you're ascending from chest to head. Do you crack? Does that happen? Or do you just get scared and you notice that your body kind of freaks out? Even like unintentionally, you start to grab or you start to push air because you just want to move through it and you want to get to the other side of it. Does that ever happen? Or do you not even try to change registers because your head voice is so much weaker than your chest voice and you don't want to use it because you don't like the way it sounds? And so you just end up pushing your chest voice as high as you can possibly go because you don't want to go to head voice because you don't think it sounds good and you don't feel confident in it. So you just push your chest voice as high as you can possibly go. And then you feel tension and strain and you just feel like you're hitting a ceiling And so you just don't even try. You just don't even try to go to head voice. You just tap out. You just stop. So if you're experiencing those things and you want to know how to transition from head to chest and chest back to head smoothly, reliably every single time, then pay attention. Okay. So first off, you're not alone. Okay. Like this is one of the things that every singer deals with when they're up leveling their technique and their sound. Okay. The ability to transform from chest voice to head voice smoothly is the source of so much insecurity and anxiety for so many singers. And yeah, I see you in the chat, that pressuring of those high notes to come out. It's pressure in the mind because everybody values high notes. Oh, you got to sing the high note amazing. So it's pressure in the mind that then creates pressure in the body to push those notes out. And that's what actually makes it really impossible for those notes to come out the way you want and be able to do it in a way that transitions either into mix or into head. So I totally feel you there in the comments. So you guys are not alone in this. Okay. There's like, this is the thing that everybody deals with, which is how do I find that continuity between registers? And I don't blame you for being in that insecurity and in that anxiety. I totally do not blame you. Okay. Because middle voice, which is the transition area, right? So we have chest register, we have head register, and then we have the transition area, which is often referred to as kind of middle voice. Okay. It can be very tricky to negotiate and downright scary without really good tools. Okay. So, I'm getting a little thing that my internet, I hope you guys are still seeing me live. Okay. So if internet goes wonky, I will come back out. I will come back, but I think we're okay. So, but yeah, like Renu, I see you in the chat. You were one of those singers. It's not a fun place to be because it's anxiety and it's stress. And when we're in that place, we want to over control because we don't want to mess it up. But then all that over control ends up creating the mess of the sound that we didn't want to create in the first place. So I'm on here right now with some insights that I think can help. The cavalry has arrived. Let me give you some new tools. Okay. So first of all, I want you to stop using the term break, my break. Okay. Immediately, just let's stop calling the transition between registers your break, because you guys, the words that we use to describe these things have a direct effect on our mind and then what we create in the body. So if you're calling this area your break and you're conceiving of it as a break, right? I mean, when you think about it, what's a break? Like I'm imagining, like when Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner, are chasing each other and they come up to the edge of the cliff and then there's this like giant chasm and then the cliff on the other side. Like that's what I'm imagining when I think break. And that's what a break is. It's like a giant chasm, a giant fissure, a giant thing that you can't get past that's broken. If you're imagining there being a giant break between your registers, I got news for you guys. You will create it. You will absolutely create it because you have now created an idea in your mind of something that is an interruption and also of something that is kind of scary that we don't want, right? Which is something to break. So in your mind, you now have this idea. Now your body is going to react to it. And so you don't want to fall into this cavern and you don't want things to quote break, right? And so what are you going to do in your body? Oh, you're going to do everything in your power to prevent that from happening, which is going to take you into push, force, over control, manipulate. And those are the things that take you out of especially the breath support that you otherwise need to create a smooth transition from one register to another. So number one, stop using the term break. Like right now, every time you notice yourself thinking of it that way, give yourself a slap on the hand. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, instead of break, we need to give ourselves a new way to think about it. So what I want you to think is passage. So in the Italian way of learning to sing, in bel canto singing, we call that area going from one register to another, we call it the passaggio. It's a beautiful Italian word, passaggio. That sounds a hell of a lot better than break. right? And so passaggio means what it sounds like, the passage. And what it implies is continued movement, where the word break implies a complete stoppage, a breaking, an interruption, which is what all of you create when you think that without even realizing it. So using this idea and starting to think of that part of your voice as the passage, the passaggio, and what that actually means, which is moving and continuous and uninterrupted. Because like I said before, if you're thinking break, you will stop. You will literally stop in your support. Like, you guys like my cute yoga pants, right? Corpo does awesome. So when you're thinking about the gentle flex into this container of support that we talk about, it's about continuous flow and flex over the course of the phrase. But now you got to chain registers. And so what do? You're nicely flexing as you go up. And then as you have to switch and approach the next register, you stop and you grab because you're scared and you don't want to break it and you don't want to crack. But in doing that, you actually create the break that you were scared of. So now we're thinking of it as passage, which is continued motion and movement through, which means continued motion and movement through the entire flex of your support. Now, if you're watching me talk about this and using words like appoggio and container of support, and you're like, Arden, I don't know what you're talking about, there's a ton of tools and explanation and stuff on my YouTube channel. If you just like go on my YouTube channel, which is Arden Kamen Vocal Studio, and you put in to search the channel for appoggio, which is, I'll type it into the chat so you can know how to spell it. Appoggio, appoggio. Okay, there you go. So appoggio is the technique of the support. Now, I'm looking at what Renu is saying in the chat. I can get into the higher notes, without the difficulty, but coming down is hard. And so what that tells you, Renu, is that when you come down, you're doing something different in your support. You're doing something different in your shape. You're stopping instead of continuing to flow through all of the integrity of support and integrity of resonating space that you probably have been able to master on the way up. Okay. So when something isn't working, it's generally because something is changing that doesn't need to be changing. Okay. Things that support things are stable and steady and constant. And so if you're experiencing stuff in your voice, like I'm able to get that on the way up, but not on the way down, then I would encourage you, Renu, to look at what you're doing on the way down. Where am I changing my support? Where am I changing my space? Where am I not continuing to flow through? Where, all these things, and start to get present to what's different on the way down and on the way up, because it should be no different. It doesn't matter that you're going up. It doesn't matter that you're going down. It doesn't matter that you're in chest voice. It doesn't matter that you're in head voice. It doesn't matter where you are. That consistency of support and resonating shape does not change. Does not change. Doesn't matter. Me going from head to chest. And the reason I can do that, and you don't even know where I switched, is because of the continuity and consistency of how I'm leaning on my support without changing, no matter which direction I'm going, and pulling up in my soft palate space without changing, no matter what direction I'm going. Okay. So those of you who have problems with break, who have problems transitioning registers, it is 99.9% of the time because you don't have consistency and continuity in those two areas of your voice, your support and your resonating shape. Okay. And again, if you're not really sure like what these things mean, what I'm talking about, just go search my channel or come work with us and I'll show you hands-on. Anyway, back to what we were talking about, because this is super important. I made some notes so that I don't forget to tell you anything, and then I lost them. Okay, here we go. So stop using the word break. Start thinking of the idea of passage, passaggio. It's all about continuity, just like we were talking about. Now, that's the first concept. But the other concept is the idea of each register, head and chest, being equally as strong. So what do I mean by that? Well, for a lot of singers, they haven't been taught how to use the proper support in their head voice that they do in their chest voice. They're scared of head voice. So they back off and they don't use what they've been taught without realizing it. And head voice ends up being weak. It ends up being unreliable. It ends up being airy. They don't like the way they sound with it. Like, how many times have you either had this yourself or heard a singer where they're like super strong chest voice, and then they go to head voice and it's like this, they can get there, but it's not as focused, powerful, resonant, because they don't know, they haven't practiced their technique tools to get it to work in head voice in the same way they do in chest voice. So head voice ends up being weak, unreliable. They don't like it. It scares them, so they don't use it. And then it gets even weaker, even more unreliable, even more scary. And so they use it even less, and it just perpetuates itself. And so now they have this like massively strong chest voice and very inconsistent, weak head voice. And we were talking before about this idea of passage, and part of what can really help you move through the passage is understanding how to mix. But the thing about a mix is things that make a good mix have equal parts of whatever they're mixing. So the example I like to use is an Arnold Palmer. You guys know the drink, right? It's like iced tea and lemonade together. So good, especially in summer. And to me, the best Arnold Palmer are those that have equal parts iced tea and lemonade. And it's equally as strong for both flavors, and it mixes together and it creates awesomeness on your taste buds. So head voice, chest voice, mixed voice is the same thing. If your chest voice is massively more supported, more powerful, more trained than your head voice, you will never be able to mix. And that passage becomes more difficult. So your chest voice will always overpower your head voice every single time. And it's really hard to create a good mix that way. And the same is true in the other scenario. If your head voice is really strong and really trained, like I experienced this with a lot of the opera singers that I work with, where they're taught not to really use their chest voice because that's really not what is appropriate for the sound for that genre. So their head voice, they take their head voice down very low, which is great for them. But if they need to use if they need to use chest voice, or if they need to mix, it becomes very difficult for them because their head voice is very strong and very trustworthy and powerful and focused resonance, and their chest voice is weak and not. So it's harder for them to mix as well. So in order to really move smoothly from chest to head, body needs to understand how to mix, but it can't do that if what it's mixing is massively out of whack in terms of strength. It would be like trying to make an Arnold Palmer and you've got 90% lemonade and 10% iced tea. It's not going to taste like what it's supposed to taste like. That lemonade is overpowering the tea. Okay. So what we want to really do here is look at our voice and look at our registers. And if you find that you have one register that you don't use as much, or that you feel more insecure about, that's weaker than the other, you've got to shore it up. You've got to strengthen it. You've got to learn how to use your technique tools to be able to do that, so that you can mix beautifully with equal strength and equal parts of both voices, so that one is not overpowering the other, so that you can move through registers with a nice mix that takes you from one to the other. So first, you got to fix the understanding in your body of your support and your resonance, and how to not change those things as you move through registers. And then you got to understand which register needs more work in order to be able to do that and get the training to do that. So I'm just looking at what you guys are writing in the chat. Oh, bonjour de Paris. Comment ça va? Sounds beautiful. Welcome. Okay, wait. Margot, I'm reading what you're putting in the chat. I'm still singing at 73, but the teacher with whom I've studied for the better part of 40 years was focused on teaching head voice, at least for the sopranos. Now you work with mixing scales. Yeah, exactly. Because if we're talking about having the most well-rounded voice, somebody who's only learning how to strengthen head voice, you're completely neglecting a larger part of your voice that's going to help you do whatever you want to do. And so at the end of the day, I have singers who come to me, singers who are working in my program, and will be working on a certain piece of repertoire. And they'll say, well, I don't know if it's supposed to be in head voice or if it's supposed to be in chest voice, meaning like a specific phrase. And I'll say to them back, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're able to do both, and then you get to decide what best serves the song. if a singer can only do one or only do the other, if a singer, let's say, has a really strong chest voice, but really hasn't strengthened their head voice at all, and now, they're massively limited into what they can sing, and that will massively limit the opportunities they have for their singing in their career, because they don't have access to reliable power and reliable resonance throughout their entire range. So, Margot, what I would say to you is like, mixing and scales and stuff like that is, before you even get to that, what's going to make that even easier is being able to get really acquainted with your chest voice, just independently of whatever scales or rep or whatever, just to, I don't know if you were watching at the beginning, but putting your hand here and just, ah, and then some sirens, and if you notice that it gets tight as you siren up, right? What that's telling you is that you're not supporting that rise in pitch. So these things, you guys are like all related, right? Because you can't just address register without addressing support. Most of the time, the reasons that singers are having trouble in given registers is because they don't know how to support it, and the support becomes inconsistent as they change pitch and they move through that register. So while all these tools today that I'm giving you, you guys, are like super necessary and important, at the end of the day, they're just not going to work if your brain is sabotaging you from using them in the first place. And so, and I say that, I mean, you guys, if you follow my content, you know that I'm huge on this part of your instrument being trained. It has to, because what does it look like if your brain is sabotaging your body from using the techniques that you have? It looks like the stories you've been telling yourself, limiting beliefs and fears around changing registers. I have a singer who, when she first came to work with me, she's like, I don't have a head voice. I had a teacher who told me, like, I don't have a high voice. I'll never be able to sing that high. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But like, that's what she was told. And so she bought into it. And it became a story. It became a story she bought into. It became a limiting belief that then created fear that she just wasn't good enough to do X, Y, Z, so she should just stay low. It was complete BS. Nobody had taught her how to use it, and it doesn't mean that she's going to be a high coloratura soprano, but what it does mean is that she has access to a whole new part of her voice now that she didn't before, because we started to address those limiting beliefs. Because I can give you guys the best technique to be able to access these parts of your voice and address the things that have been stopping you from getting there, like your breath support and other things. But if she still has that belief that high is hard, that she doesn't sing high, that she can't sing high, that her voice wasn't built to do that, that will continue to sabotage her body, because then she's going to be in fear. She's going to be in can't. And so I'm going to ask her to do things, and her body's going to go, nope, can't do it. Like subconsciously, it's not conscious, and then she creates that in her body, because she's going to go into the holding pattern, which is how the body responds to fear. Or she's going to go into the pushing pattern, which is also how the body responds to fear. I'm going to push through. I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove it. And she's going to create the bad sound that just reinforces that she's not good enough to do it, because those are the things that kick you off the proper and efficient technique that would otherwise allow you to do these things. So without addressing the mind and how it messes with the body, if it's not brought from subconscious to conscious, without addressing these things as part of your training, I could give you the best techniques in the world for smoothing out and changing registers, and it won't matter. It won't matter, because it just creates insecurity, and it creates continuation of negative feedback loops and patterns. And it's very insidious, because it will kill any momentum you have on your singing journey or in your career by creating just a load of doubt, which means now you're not confident in your ability to deliver the way that you want. You don't have access to be able to do everything you want with your voice. And so there are opportunities you won't even take, because you think, oh, I can't sing that, or that's, I will never be impressive, so I can't do that. And so now either you're not going to put yourself out there for those opportunities that could be really game changing for you, or you'll go out for them, but you won't land them. because you don't have the consistency to deliver that in your voice every single time. So then the journey stagnates. If you're doing this professionally, your career stagnates, or it stalls out, which creates even more self-doubt, second guessing your talent. Am I really good enough? Should I even be doing this? And so, then you stay at your crappy day job and just settle for plan B. And now it's 20 years later and you're looking back and you're like, oh my God, I wasted my talent. I wasted my voice. That sucks. And then that feeds back into even more mind-body sabotage, perpetuating the cycle. So if you relate to this and you recognize yourself in this cycle and you want our support to help break it, fix the issues, deal with your break and everything else so that you can really get out there and perform and rely on your voice and love it and make an impact, even make money, be powerful as a professional or be powerful just as a performer in whatever you're trying to do with it, then get on my call calendar, book a call with me. I'm going to put it in the chat. Like, this is exactly what we do. This is exactly what we are here for. You guys, traditional training does not address this stuff. There is a reason why intellectually you understand these things, but when push comes to shove, you've been working on them for so long and you're still not able to do it. This is why. And so we'll get on the phone and we'll chat for like 45 minutes and we'll get really clear on what's going on with your voice, the gap between where you are, where you want to go. And I'll talk to you about the exact steps that you need to take to fix things. And then if you want our help to implement that and our support to help you do that, then I'll show you what that looks like. And if not, that's okay too. But just making sure you understand that this call is for people who are really serious and people who are committed to doing the hard work and whatever it takes to fix these issues and really reach the potential of their voice, like once and for all, and really be out there to achieve what you want to achieve with your voice. This is not for people who are what I would call tire kickers, people who just want some free information, people who say they want to be successful singers, but are really not interested in that outcome. And they're really not invested in that outcome because they've never really taken any actions to make that happen. That's what I call a dabbler. If you're a dabbler, this is not for you, okay? But if you are serious about being able to tap into the potential of your voice and do all the things that then that allows you to do, win auditions, release records, be able to make opportunities, take opportunities, perform for thousands of people on a regular basis, get paid. Like, if you're really serious about up-leveling where you are and investing the time, the money, the energy to fix these things and get past what's been stopping you and your voice, then I absolutely want to talk to you. This is the call that is for you. So don't waste any more time. Book a call, get on my calendar. If you're on YouTube, there will be a link to be able to do this after this in the, the video description. If you're watching on Facebook, the link's in the chat. You can keep, as you're experimenting with some of this stuff, you can keep hitting me in the chat and I will answer and I'll, let you know what I think about whatever you're doing. But bottom line is this: don't keep doing it the old way. Because if you keep doing it the old way, you're just going to keep getting the old results. And that is what we're here to change. Okay, guys, have an amazing rest of your day. I'm going to go coach my group now and I will talk to you later. Bye.